When did this idea come to you? I mean, because there's so many different ways of making a film.
Well, I finished another project about Bergman called Bergman's Video, and it was a television series about Bergman's video room on his island on Fårö, and he had 1,700 VHS cassettes, everything from Jaws to the Blues Brothers to Tarkovsky to everything. And we also made a documentary called Trespassing Bergman out of that. And at the end of that production, I made it with my co-director, Hinek Pallas, and producer, Fatima Barros. At the end of that production, I just noticed that, well, in 1957, The Seventh Seal and Wild Strawberries comes out. That's amazing. Someone should make a film about that year. And I was, I thought it was amazing that just those two things happened that year. But I was kind of tired of Bergman at that point, and I decided, well, someone else should just make that film. But then I was asked if I wanted to make the film for Bergman's centenary in Sweden. And I thought, well, maybe you can dig up that idea. And I said, well, if I can make it about 1957, I'd be willing to try at least. And it turned out that was kind of a good idea, because as I did research, it just... that year just got crazier and crazier. I mean, I was happy with it just being these two films. Then I knew he was married to Gun Gruth and had a relationship with Bibi Andersson, but I didn't know that he met Käbi Laarite, his next wife, and his wife after that, Ingrid von Rosen, the same year. So that was a nice surprise. And then I didn't know that he'd made these 4 theater productions and another television movie, and I had no idea that he made Brink of Life the same year either. So I usually say it was like I cartwheeled to work and then I cartwheeled home, because it was just, this year just grew and became better and better. And instead of it being difficult to make a film about Ingmar Bergman, because he's Ingmar Bergman, he's kind of terrifying, it turned out to be a very joyful time and great, happy production.
And in a way, you could have called it A Life in a Year, because you take the year and then go out from that at various points to take in his childhood and background, but also to move forwards. It's quite a complex and sophisticated structure. Did you have to work for a long time on that, or?
Yes and no. It looks complicated, but it's actually pretty simple. It's chronological, 1957, and then in that it's chronological. It's like 2 chronologies, and in that his life is in that as well. So, I mean, a lot of people have criticized me for jumping back and forth and being totally confusing, and it's a horrible film. But I think it's it's kind of logical. I mean, it's 57 moves this way, and his life moves that way. But it was hard to know what to include and not to include. This is also there's a 4-episode television series, 4 hours, that I made along with this film. And it's twice as much material in here, so it was hard to make the choices of what to throw out and what to keep in.
And there's so much great footage in it. I mean, just seeing colour footage of Victor Sjöström is for me amazing. But also, there's that lovely bit with Bergman sort of dancing around on the set of Cries and Whispers and things. And was it difficult to get hold of all this footage? There's so much of it.
No, it's I wish I could say, I struggled, it was so hard, but it wasn't. At the beginning of the production, there was a big article in Dagens Nyheter, which is Sweden's main daily paper, about the project starting. And so people started calling, I have this roll of film here with Victor Sjöström, do you want it? Yes. And the same with the interview with Bergman's brother, Dag. In northern Sweden, it was a small production company who called him. We have some rolls of film here from a forbidden documentary. Are you interested? So, we had to travel and meet a lot of people and discuss prices. But it wasn't difficult to find. Also, Bergman was a master of documenting himself. There's always someone filming him, and often he's filming the other actors as well. So behind the scenes. So, but what's happy with these color the color images of Victor Sjöström and Bergman during the shoot of Wild Strawberries they're quite rare because Bergman is actually in the shot. It's not him behind the camera doing the behind the scenes footage. So that was really fun, and those particular that footage is by someone who wants to be anonymous, who was filming but wasn't allowed to. But it's weird because he's quite close, or she, to all the actors. But the footage came to us via what's it called? Someone a go-between. So.
Ah, really? Was it difficult getting people to speak about Bergman? I mean, some of them are quite critical of him. Was that difficult, given that he is such a sort of towering figure in Swedish culture?
Well, the people who really detest Bergman, they're not in the film. They don't want to talk about him at all. Then there's some people who don't detest Bergman who are just tired of always being asked about Bergman. They're not in the film either, and I understand them. And the people who are critical of Bergman, they're not in a position where they need the Swedish film industry or Swedish. I mean, they're either retired or, like Torsten Flink, they're just not getting any work anyway. So he doesn't have anything to lose by telling his horrible, horrible story. But most of the time, when you call people up and ask if they want to talk about Ingmar Bergman, they're very happy to, because I mean, like, it's interesting with the sound editor Ove Svensson. You know, nobody's talked to him about Bergman, but he was right there next to him for many years. And in this film, I tried to talk only to people who actually worked with him. In my other Bergman project, it's people who admired him from afar, all the great directors, Woody Allen, Scorsese, Lars von Trier. But here was, people were really happy to talk about Bergman. So it's either black or white, pretty much.
And I mean, I think one of the great things about the film is that we do, I think, get a sharper understanding of Bergman. He's no longer this monolithic sort of genius. There is a man there. But at the same time, there's still a mystery about what he was really like, and also how could that man have produced so much art?
I don't know. I wish I could answer that. I mean, that's the question. How could this year be possible? I think Bergman isn't the big Ingmar Bergman yet, and he has this one chance. He's just had a prize in Cannes in 1956 for Smiles of a Summer Night. And now he has a chance to become that big director he always wanted. And I think he has a hard time saying no to projects. And he tries to get out of one of the radio plays, but can't. I think he even tries to get out of the television film, but can't. So he just says, well, I got to do it. And he does it. And I'm just happy he had that year.
It's funny, isn't it? The Smiles of a Summer Night was his first, I suppose, really big breakthrough and his big prize in Cannes, and it was awarded for its poetic humour, not a thing that Bergman is often known for, of course. But I think we've probably got time for some questions from you now. So if you have questions, please do put up your hand.
Well, it's interesting. This is like something in Sweden we don't want to talk about. Although Bergman is the one who talks about it himself. He writes about it in La Terra Magica, his autobiography. And people have always tried. In Sweden, we want to avoid that subject. I think, Bergman, he wasn't alone in Sweden about sympathizing with Hitler. At that time, before we knew about the concentration camps, Sweden was more afraid of Russia. So if you were comparing Russia and Germany seemed to be doing better. But then, so a lot of Swedes sympathize with Hitler. But what's unique with Bergman is he's the only one who says, I did it. And everyone else denies it in Sweden. And you have people with middle names Adolf, and they also deny it. So although I don't admire Bergman's views or agree with him at all, I do think his honesty is important. And I don't think if we don't talk about, I think if we don't talk about things like that, then they come back and haunt us in history. But then there's the problem of him not, sorry, my English fails me, that he believes in Hitler up until 1946. I think that's a huge, huge, horrible problem. But he does say that he thought the concentration camp pictures were propaganda.
He was again not alone in
No,
that.
absolutely not.
And
that's the thing with Bergman. I mean, he's not the first unfaithful husband. He's not the first bad father. He's certainly not the first egomaniacal artist, but he's one of the most honest people talking about these things, which doesn't make unfaithfulness or bad parenting forgivable, but it's interesting that he wants to bring these topics up. If we were going to talk about Ingmar Bergman in 1957 and his children, say they didn't know him then. I mean, he was never around, so they couldn't really comment on it. And then they didn't want to be in the film, so I didn't pursue that because I don't know where I would have put them really. And then I mean, there are pictures of them, but I decided since they don't, they're alive and they move around Sweden, and I thought it would be more tasteful not to have pictures of them in the film. Yeah, a good question. I definitely think so. I mean, there've been so many films made about Bergman and so many books written about him, but most of them with kind of Bergman looking over the shoulder of the director or the author. And so this is one of the first films that have been made after his death, with people who actually worked with him and who feel a little bit more comfortable about talking what it was really like to be at the Royal Dramatic Theatre when Bergman was there. And it doesn't seem like it was a super nice place to be. But then it's hard to answer because I didn't ever try to make this film while Bergman was alive. But I have seen, so I can't compare if people more talkative now or then. But the films that have been made about Bergman while he was still alive are much more positive. I don't feel like I'm being negative toward Bergman, but I'm just he's being negative about himself. He's the one who's always saying I'm terrible, and I thought we could include that now.
Yeah, I mean, Bergman was his own severest critic.
He was. It's horrible.
And one thing I wanted to ask you is that, I mean, we know that Bergman himself was a terribly unreliable narrator in his books, and that contradicts himself and says things which are blatantly untrue and misses out whole chunks of his life and everything. But of course, all people are potentially unreliable narrators. And there's one of the things I'd like to ask you whether you really believe this is, I think it's Gösta Ekman, excuse my accent.
Perfect pronunciation.
Who was an assistant to Bergman in the 50s, but he talks about a later film, Winter Light, and says how Bergman got a doctor friend to tell Gunnar Björnstrand that his illness was rather more serious. Do you believe that story?
Yeah, I do, just because seeing Gunnar Björnstrand's performance in Winter Light, I mean, the scenes he's in here, the one we see here when he's telling Ingrid Thulin how he despises her, that's a depressed person talking, I feel like. I mean, I
think it's a great performance myself. And
yeah,
but
who would make up a story like that?
Well, would a doctor do that for a start?
Yeah.
And would Björnstrand have remained friends with Ingmar, working up until his death, until Fanny and Alexander?
Well, they didn't really work that much together after.
Quite a few films there.
Well, all right. Yeah, well, I would say...
The doctor would be breaking a Hippocratic oath.
Yeah, well, you should call the doctor.
Gösta Ekman.
Well, actually, it was Peter Fischer who told the story.
Ah, right. Sorry, yes, mistake. So.
No, I believe that, and I've heard that story from different people, but he's the one who says it on camera. And I mean, that's a horrible thing to say to an actor, but I'm ready to forgive Bergman because Gunnar Björnstrand's performance is so amazing in that film.
It is sublime.
Yeah, absolutely. This is funny. Obviously, I would never want to even try to mimic Bergman. That's just a battle you're going to lose. But what we had, and you can't tell in the film, which is just really funny, our cinematographer, Emil Klang, we wanted there to be some kind of motion and special light behind the people we interviewed, and that would also make it clear what interviews were new as opposed to the archival footage. And so we built this huge stand. It was from here to the wall, like a clothes hanger with wheels. And from it, we suspended plexiglass panels this big, and like a Lego motor from a disco ball light, and like rubber bands and glue and whatever. And they would spin very slowly behind the person interviewed. And just carrying this around all over the globe and unpacking it and building it up and taking it down 55 times. It was a nightmare. I spent so much time with that machine, and then wore out countless interns. And then when in the grading, I believe it's called in English, Emil didn't like the look of it, so he just graded it out. You can't see it. It took so many hours, which is actually all right, because the look now is I really like it too. But it's funny that that horrible machine. We call it the carousel, but it just wasn't fun at all.
The magic of cinema. I think we probably do have to stop now. So thank you for coming, but thank you especially to Jane Magnusson.